With us now is Ambassador David Friedman, former U.S. ambassador to Israel during the Trump administration. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Yaakov.
And the author of the best-selling book, Sledgehammer.
Thank you.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Ambassador, President Biden is heading to the Middle East. Any expectations on your side?
Well, look, I'm rooting for him. You know, I think we should all be supporting the president, whoever he may be, when they leave American soil. My expectations are quite low, and I'll tell you why. This is about as weak a president has been on a trip to the Middle East. You know, his popularity is very low. The U.S. economy is in grave danger. He is looking at a midterm election, which is potentially a disaster for the Democratic Party. And I think he's coming to the Middle East for one reason only. I think he's coming because we have $5 a gallon gas.
Right.
And I don't know if he can fix that.
Now, President Biden shunned the Saudis on human rights issues.
Sure.
And here he is going to Riyadh to what? To beg for lower oil prices? Is that it?
I heard Mike Pompeo last night say that instead of going to Saudi Arabia, if he wants lower oil prices, he should go to Midland, Texas. And he's exactly right. I mean, we have all the oil we need in America. So it's awkward, and it's, I think, somewhat humiliating for a president of the United States to go to Saudi Arabia to ask the Saudis to do what America could do on its own. Remember, it's one earth. You know, if you're worried about the environment, it doesn't matter whether you're drilling, in Saudi Arabia or in America. And we don't need Saudi Arabian oil. We do need, and I think we should advance better relations with Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure if this is the president who can make that happen, or if this is the right time to make that happen.
So let's talk about the Middle Eastern angle here. What are the prospects of any Saudi-Israeli move on any level, which actually that was something that you were talking about during the Abraham Accords back then?
Sure. Look, I'm convinced that if we were still in office, we would have normalized Saudi and Israel. And I think that would have been an enormous breakthrough for the Arab-Israeli conflict. Remember that Israel normalized with Bahrain, and that wouldn't happen without Saudi approval. And remember that after the Abraham Accords, the Saudis allowed Israel to fly over Saudi airspace. You fly from Tel Aviv to Abu Dhabi, almost the entire flight is over Saudi airspace, which was unthinkable just a couple of years ago. So that relationship is moving forward, and it will happen. I'm not sure that the United States is coming to Saudi with the right frame of mind, with the right level of respect for the Saudi kingdom. If they're coming hand in hand, the outcome won't be good.
What's the missing link for this to happen?
I think the missing link, the Abraham Accords, if you think about it, think of every Abraham Accord as a triangle. Israel, a Muslim country, with the United States at the apex. That's how every one of these deals got done. I don't know that the United States right now is in a position to give either Israel or the Saudis the kind of comfort, the kind of encouragement, the kind of guarantees that are necessary for the Saudis to make that move. If the U.S. was continuing to sanction Iran, if the U.S. was continuing to help to empower the moderate Sunni nations, I think it would be different. That's the approach we took. But if the approach is one of calling the Saudi Arabians a pariah state, if it's focusing on human rights abuses, it's not going to go anywhere. By the way, we all care about human rights, but the U.S. has deep interests in a strong relationship with Saudi Arabia, and that's important for every American, so that no American ever has to go back to the Middle East and risk their life. And I think the Saudis play an important role there, and we should be embracing it.
Now, we are seeing, I would say, a beginning of a formation of a military alliance between Israel and the Gulf states against Iran. Does that exceed your expectations from the Abraham Accords?
I thought it was a natural outgrowth of the relationship continuing to bloom and bear trust. One of the things that I pushed for before I left office was for Israel to enter CENTCOM, right? Because for many, many years, Israel was part of EUCOM, the European Command. Now, what's Israel doing in the European Command? I mean, it's like a fish out of water there, but it had to be there because the Arab countries wouldn't accept Israel with inCENTCOM.
By the way, the same happened with sports. Israel was a part of Europe instead of the area. But go ahead.
So now Israel is part of the U.S. Central Command, which, just because of where it is, because it's in the Middle East, because it's where America has fought wars, that's where the real serious, fighting, brigades reside. And so, for Israel to be part of that, I think it adds to the credibility and the trust between the moderate Sunni countries.
Do you foresee this going and getting stronger over time?
I think it will, yes.
Now, speaking of which, nuclear talks. Why is this a never-ending story?
Well, because I think the U.S. has been unwilling to recognize the obvious, which is that Iran is a rogue state that will not keep its bargain, no matter what's written on a piece of paper, that it's a very dangerous nation, and that we can't on our own cause the Iranians to change their behavior, no matter what we put on a piece of paper. What we can do is to create the type of serious, backbreaking sanctions that causes the Iranian regime to choose between being a nuclear and bankrupt state or a non-nuclear prosperous state. We want them to have to make that choice. And what Biden has done is he's kind of let them off the hook. He's begun to relieve the sanctions, and it's a mistake. It's a mistake that if the Iranians are given that choice over time, the Iranian people, who are the greatest victims of the Iranian regime, they will be able over time to moderate around, just like they did in 50, 60 years ago. So there's a long-term reason for optimism, but it comes with unyielding sanctions, and the U.S. doesn't recognize that right now.
So given that and the escalation you see around between Israel and Iran over Syria and other places, all over the place actually,
sure,
is a war inevitable?
A war is never inevitable. I never think a war is inevitable. People are watching very clearly right now what the extraordinary, horrific consequences of war. We're all seeing it every day, real time. So I wouldn't call it inevitable. I would say that there is still time for Iran to change its path, but the pressure must be extraordinary, because otherwise they're just following the model of North Korea. Right? Their assumption is they'll get a bomb, and then they'll hold the world hostage, and somehow that will keep them in power. And that's the path we're on right now. I think that if we're strong, if America is strong, if the world is strong, a much bigger question whether the Europeans will be strong. If America goes back and becomes energy independent in a way that oil comes down to $60 a barrel, there's no pressure on Iran at all if we don't pump oil in America, because we become dependent upon Russia or the Gulf, and the price goes up to at $100 a barrel, 120, 130. The Iranians have nothing to worry about. So we're just not being smart right now in terms of how we're managing this relationship.
All right, I will not let you go before asking, will Donald Trump, your friend, run again?
Should we try to get him on the phone now? Maybe he'll.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm sure he's not going to answer that question until after the midterms. We'll see. He would make an extraordinary candidate. Lots of other Republicans would make extraordinary candidates. I think the Republicans will, God willing, be in the White House in 2024, and we can start to restore some of the gains that we made when we were in office.
Ambassador David Friedman, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Yaakov. Always good to be with you. Thank you.